All right, good evening. We're ready to get started. 8:40, 9:40 for some of you. We are learning tonight Maseches Shekalim, Daf Dalid. Just to share the game plan for the next couple of days, I really did try very hard today to do a blot and a half to no avail. This is not the day to carve out. I didn't work Pashut at all, just regular Pesach stuff. And on top of that, it's a challenging blot. So we're going to be starting on the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis at Halacha Daled. And the game plan is going to be like this. Tonight, we're going to learn the proper daf for tonight, which is Daf Daled. Tomorrow's Daf Hey, we're going to learn on Shabbos. We'll be off by one daf for all of the Chag. Sorry. So Shabbos will be Daf Hey, and Sunday will be Daf Vav, and Monday will be Daf Zayin. And then on Tuesday night, we'll do a blot and a half. And on Wednesday night, we'll do a blot and a half, and then we'll be evened out. So my apologies for the lack of schedule, this whole Shekalim thing that's happening so close to Pesach. I have to learn another language of Shekalim. So please bear with me. Let's get started. Halacha Daled Masnisan, 8-9 lines from the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis. Afal pi sha'amru ein memashkin in nashim ba'avadim muktanim. Even though it's true that we don't place a lien on people nashim ba'avadim and ktanim in regards to their machzis shekel, avalim shaklu mekadlim miyadan. If they do give of their own volition, then that would be considered acceptable. Hanachri v'hakusi sheshaklu. What about a non-Jew or a kusi? The kusi people was a group of people who, at one point in history, decided to be Megayer, to join Klal Yisrael. And there's a machlokas in the Rishonim about the integrity of whether or not their conversion was a good one. We'll see the basic Mari Mekomos today. And here, very clearly, Hanachri veHakusi, they're coupled together, the non-Jew and the Kusi, Sheshaku. If they gave Machzis HaShekel, Ein Mekablen Mehen, that one would, we would not accept it. We don't want the money of a non-Jew to go toward the Mikdash. There are those in the Rishonim who write that there's a concern that they then feel like they have a say, like it's their religion at that point. So we're afraid of that, and we have to draw the line. We have a number of areas of halacha where we say that Mishum Chasnus, about Bishalakum, a couple of other areas where we want to make sure that we keep the lines separated. In fact, the Raman Shulchan Aruch deals with whether or not it's appropriate for a nachri, for a person who is a non-Jew, to support a shul's building for the same exact reasons. So we're mekel halacha. We're not mekel because of being money hungry. It's just ladina. It's just not a problem because everyone really understands where they are. So the Mishnah continues 4 or 5 lines from the bottom. Ve'ein mekavlen miyadan. We also do not accept from them. At this point, seemingly hanachri v'akusi, seemingly both of them. We do not accept from them kinei zavim. Birds for a person who was a zav, vikine zavos for a woman who was a zava, vikine yoldos, the birds that a woman would bring as a korban after having a child, v'chatos v'ashamos. So it seems that a nachri and a kusi would not be able to bring all of these things, and the Rishonim already are bothered. We'll see in the Gemara more. There is no zav and zava by a nachri. Zav and zava, you have to first be a barhach, you have to be a bal tuma in order to become a bal tahor. They're not shaykh by zav and zava, and there's no din of yoledas by them either. So we'll have to see what that means in the Gemara. Zeh klal, this is the general rule in regards to accepting gifts from the Nachri and from the Kusi. At least, again, at this point, we assume it's both. Kol shenider v'nidev, anything that they are giving on their own, that they're choosing, they're making a vow, or they're giving a gift, mekablen miyadan, that we do accept. Kol she'eno nider v'nidev, if they're not volunteering it and they're doing it for halachic reasons, like Machzit HaShekel, for example, Ein Mekablen Miyadan V'chein Mefurish Ayidei Ezra. When Ezra was on the route back to rebuilding the second Beis HaMikdash, Shne'emar, what did he say there? Lo lachem, you should not be the ones who build. You, the Nachri, should not be the ones who rebuild it. V'lanu livnos Beis Lelokenu. We're the ones who should be rebuilding, and that brings us to the top of Daled Amud Aleph. The Mishnah continues there. And here we're going to be introduced to a new idea, one that we will spend a lot of time on today, and that is a principle called the Kalbon. The Kalbon was a percentage add to the Machzis HaShekel. And the reason why, it was machlokas, why we have this, there's some who are concerned about the fact that it's not a perfectly pure silver, and we have to make sure that the Machzis HaShekel is pure. Some say it's for more halachic reasons that relate to din d'Rabbanan and not out of a concern of financial financial integrity, but more of a halachic reason, which we'll get to in the Gemara. But the point is that it was a small percentage added to the machzis shekel to make sure that one was yotze. So says the Mishnah on the top of Dalet Amud Aleph, on the top line, first words, ve'elu shechayavim bekalbon. There are not everyone was chayav to pay the extra little bit, the extra kalbon. Levim v'Yisraelim v'gerim v'avadim v'shuchrarim. Those are the ones who are obligated to pay. V'alo kohanim v'noshim v'avadim muktanim. However, kohanim, noshim, v'avadim muktanim were exempt. Hashokel al yedei kohen al yedei ha'isha al yedei eved al yedei katan pater. If I'm giving on behalf of another person, not that they asked me to give for them and it was halva, but I'm giving on behalf of my children. So for those people who I'm giving, I do not have the requirement of the kalbon to add in that little bit of an extra, because technically all of those people were not obligated to start with. Yeah. The reason for the ptur is because these people were not obligated to start with. But let's say that I was bringing for you, you were bringing for me, and you're not a kohen, and we're regular run-of-the-mill Jews. So then, in theory, we would be obligated for a kalbon. But that has more of a din of a shutfus, which we're going to get to at the end of the Mishnah, which we'll speak about a little bit more. Fourth line, Dalet Amud Aleph. Let's say that I bring for you, so I'm bringing two. So then chai b'kalbon echad, because there I don't have to change the coin into two. I have one shekel. I don't have to break it into machzis a shekel. That's the assumption of the Gemara. And then we're only chayiv in one kalbon for the two of us. For Rav Meir Omer beis kalbonos, he says no. If I'm bringing for you and I'm just bringing one whole shekel, you still have to bring two kalbonos. We'll see in the Gemara what this is talking about. This next line in the Gemara seems to be a new halacha. Hanosein sela v'notel shekel. A person who gives a sela is actually, the language here is quite confusing, and the Korban Ha'eda does a good job of explaining it here. If you look at the fifth line of the Korban Ha'eda, so it's to our left and up about 1.5 inches, it says, Dibra Maschal Hanosein Sela Dahainu Shekel Shalim. The Sela is considered to be one full shekel. Now back in the Gemara, Hanosein Sela, which is a shekel Shalim, V'notel Shekel, which is meant to be a machzis shekel. The language here is very confusing. The word Sela means a full shekel, and the word shekel means a half a shekel. So you got, it would be much more, it's more of like the colloquialisms of the day. If we lived in that time, we wouldn't have had any trouble understanding this, but we're kind of using today's parlance and it doesn't fit. So a sela is a full shekel, and in this context, a shekel is half a shekel. So let's say that if I give the money changer, I give the shulchan, I give him a full sela, I give him a full shekel, and I take back in turn, I take back the half shekels. Chayev shnei kolbonos. That's what the Mishnah says, and the Mishnah is going to debate who the author is of the Gemara is going to debate who the author is of this line. Hashokel al yedei ani va'al yedei shcheno va'al yedei ben iro pater. In all of those cases, you would be considered. You would not have to bring the kolbon. And some of the Rishonim point out that all of these people are aniyim. It's an ani, and it's a shachen who's an ani, and it's a ben iro who's an ani. In those cases, we would not have obligated midirabanan. The rabbis did not obligate a person who's an ani to bring the kolbon. So if you're bringing it on their behalf, not that it's a loan, but you're saying, I'm just going to take care of you. I got it. So then under those circumstances, you're not obligated to add the kolbon. However, being hilvan, what if it's a loan? What if I'm laying out money for you and you're going to pay me back? That's different. That's not me just saying, don't worry, I got you, and I'm going to pay for you. You don't have to pay me back. That's very different. Here it's mamash alone. So I'm going to spend a machzis shekel, and you're going to have to pay me back a machzis shekel. So then under those circumstances, hilvan chayav, then I would have to pay the kolbon as well, and we'll see shortly how much it is. It's not that much. It was basically a small percentage tax. And now let's learn the last couple of parts of the Mishnah. Ha'achin, brothers. Ha'achin ha'shutfin. If there are brothers who are legal partners in that they got a Yerusha from their father, and when they were liquidating the assets, they actually built a business, they became partners in it. So then in such a case, shechayavin b'kalbon, because now they own the property. It's not in the bayis, it's not in the house of the father anymore, the father who passed away. Now they've taken ownership of their chayav in the kalbon. However, p'tur mimaiser behema, and we'll learn tomorrow why they're pater for maiser behema, not tomorrow but Shabbos, but they're p'tur mimaiser behema. And when one is chayiv in meiser behema, then under those circumstances, you'd be pater from the kalbon. In other words, there's an inverse relationship between the chiyuv of the kalbon and the p'tur of meiser behema. Whenever it is one way, it is not the other. So if you're going to be chayiv in the kalbon, you're going to be pater from the meiser. And if you're going to be chayiv in the meiser, you're going to be pater from the kalbon. Again, on Shabbos, we'll learn why that's the case. And the very last part of this Mishnah is v'kamahu kalbon, this percentage that we have to give in order to make sure that we've paid the right amount of machzis shekel. So under those circumstances, how much is that? Says the Gemara, ma'a kesef divrei Reb Meir. Reb Meir says it's a ma'a kesef. If you look through the Rishonim, you'll see that this is a 1/12 of a shekel cost, not very much. Let's call it an 8% tax. So just to make sure that, again, for a variety of reasons, that we have to make sure we're giving the right amount. However, it's not 1/12, it's half of a month, which is 1/24. It's nothing. It's 4%. It's a very small, whatever it is, very small amount. And that brings us to the Gemara. The Gemara opens up 10 lines down on Daled Amud Aleph, and it asks a question, one that we spoke about yesterday. And that is that the beginning of our Mishnah today, on the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis, spoke about the following. It said, Afal Pisha Amru V'chule. There we said that even though it's true that we do not press Nashim Avadim and Ktanim, they are able to give on their own. So the Gemara makes a diuk from here and says as follows: Halitvoa ein tovin. If they're able to give on their own, that's great, but we don't even ask them to give. We don't even do the baseline. If they want to give, they can. They're mamish pater. There's no problem. You don't have to give. If they want to give on their own, great, but we don't even ask them to give. So that's a problem because hacha at amar tovin. Hacha over here. See, in Bavli we would have said hacha and hasa. Right, we would have had a distinction in language. Here we don't have that when we're asking from two Mari Makomos. In yesterday's Mishnah, the Mishnah on Daf Gimel, in the beginning there, we spoke about the idea that a person has to, we do ask the person who is Hevi Shtei Se'aros, someone who has grown 2 pubic hairs, and we do ask him. So in one case we said Hacha at Amar Tovin, Hacha at Amar Ein Tovin, but in our Mishnah it says Ein Tovin. It says that you're not even obligated to ask them in the first place. So answers the Gemara, what about the stira between today's Mishnah and yesterday's Mishnah? Today's Mishnah seems to imply we don't ask at all. Yesterday's Mishnah implied that we do ask, but we don't pressure. And the Gemara answers, 12 lines down, Kan b'shehevi be'sa'aros, v'kan b'shelohevi be'sa'aros. Well, the Mishnah itself doesn't speak in detail about what type of person we're talking about, and the distinction would be Kan shehevi shtei sa'aros, where the child has grown 2 hairs. There we would say we're toveh. We do ask him. But where he has not grown 2 hairs, then we do not ask at all whatsoever. If he wants to give, he can. At the 2 dots, a quarter of the way down, Daled Amud Aleph. Hanachri ve'akusi, we have to get into this sugya. This is a very, very difficult sugya because when the phrase kusi is used throughout Shas, we have to make sure we know what type of kusi we're referring to. Is it a ger or is it a goy? And it's important to big nafkaminas. Just take machzis hashekel, for example. Machzis hashekel, if he's a yid, he's obligated machzis hashekel. If he's a goy, he's not allowed to give machzis hashekel. So we have to get into the sugya here about what's going on in our Mishnah. So the Gemara actually has an implied question. It doesn't even ask it, but you will see because we're answering Amar Rebbe Ba, which is really Abba. Amar Rebbe Ba, Tipater Kemanda Amar Kusi Kenachri. It's very clear that our Mishnah needs to be explained according to the opinion that a kusi has the din of a nachri, the ispalgin, because there really is a machlokas, right? The word peleg means half in Aramaic, like we say plaga mincha. So ispalgin means that there's a machlokas, half. We're both on one on each side. So what's the machlokas? Kusi kenachri divi Rebbe. Rebbe was of the opinion, and our Mishnah seems to be in line with this, that a nachri and a kusi have the same exact din. Rashbag omer kusi ki Yisrael l'chol davar. It's a big machlokas. It's a big machlokas, and that's very clear then that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is not the author of our Mishnah because our Mishnah very clearly puts together Nachri and Kusi. It says the Gemara, Amar Reb Lazer, it's really Rabbi Elazar, missing the aleph here as well, just like Rabbi Ba was missing the aleph, not uncommon, not because I've seen a lot of Yerushalmi, but not uncommon based on the rules of Yerushalmi that I've seen of recent, to drop an aleph in the beginning of a name. So Amar Rabbi Lazar, Masnisin bin Nachrim, no, he disagrees. He says, really, I'm a Reb Shimon ben Gamliel guy. I really hold that a kusi is a Yisrael l'chol davar. And our Mishnah is only talking about a nachri. That says the Gemara, but wait a minute. Hold on a second before the question. The Tani came. We also have a brisa like this. The brisa writes, Adam ki yakri. That's what the pasuk is talking about. Adam, the Rabbo says, ha-gerim. We include gerim, and the kusim are gerim. Mikem, l'hotzias ha-mumarim. That we do exclude someone who is a mumar. If someone is mamish and mumar, so these shilos come up a lot. There's always this I have this happening right now. Somebody wants me to do a bris for their son, but they're afraid that we're having a Pesach Seder with family. So she's afraid that I might, God forbid, give them COVID. I say I'm fully vaccinated. The adults I'm going to be with are all vaccinated. Like we're being safe about it. So now she may end up having a mumar do the bris because, I don't know who doesn't have Pesach Seder. It could be, I don't know. So they may choose to not use me. It's a big problem. But to have a bris done by a mumar is a zero. And it doesn't count. What?
You probably shouldn't have a cedar. You probably should just lock yourself in a closet.
That's a bitalas. That's an isser, a bitalas say of the korban pesach on the other side. It's an isser kares for an isser kares.
You still have your lamb. You still tell your
Yeah. A mumar is a person who is heretical. He rejects a portion of the Torah. I don't believe in the parsha of tzitzis. I don't believe in the parsha of shatnez. I don't believe in the first of the Yetzer Sadibros, Rachman al-Islam. It's someone who's categorical. They're mamish. It's the real deal. It's beshita. They're lahachis. A mumar lahachis is how it's referred to in the poskim.
Our school called him a renegade.
Yeah, I saw that. The renegade was a nice language. So anyways, that's what this drasha indicates. But the drasha indicates, like Rabbi Elazar says, Rabbi Elazar was of the opinion, like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, that a kusi is a Yisrael kol davar. So then the Gemara says, as we would expect, a third of the way down, Masnisin pligi al Rabbi Elazar. But our Mishnah clearly doesn't agree with Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar was of the opinion that our Mishnah is only talking about a nachri and not about a kusi. Our Mishnah says nachri ve'hakusi, that they're coupled together. So that doesn't work. So then the Gemara says, but wait 1 second, because ein mekablin miyada, and our Mishnah also writes that we don't accept from them kine zavin v'zavos kine yoldos v'chiyesh kine zavin v'zavos benachrim. If what you're saying is that our Mishnah is talking about a nachri, well, then we have an inherent contradiction in our Mishnah. If our Mishnah is only talking about a nachri, well, how do we even have a shaila about whether or not we're makabel the birds for the zav and for the yoledes? There is no din of korban for zav and yoledes by a nachri. So then the Gemara says, Ella, what must it be? It must be that Reisha b'nachrim v'seifa b'kusim is what you're telling me, that the beginning of the Gemara of the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Gimel Amud Beis is talking about, just by Machtis HaShekel, is speaking about a nachri. And this next part of the Mishnah where it details, are you allowed to accept the kine, the birds of this zav and the yoledes? That's talking about a kusi, says the Gemara. How can that be? With no distinction in the Mishnah whatsoever. Of course, anyone who's been through any part of Shas knows that happens all the time. That we see Reisha b'X and Seifa b'Y, and that's exactly what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Kainu, that's exactly right. Reisha b'Nachrim v'Seifa b'Kusim. And therefore, our Mishnah could even be like Rabbi Elazar. That is not a contradiction in terms. However, there still remains a machlokas between Rabbi and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel fundamentally about whether a kusi is considered like a nachri or not, and that does play into our Mishnah. But Rabbi Elazar could still fit within our Mishnah. Halfway down. Amar Rav Yochanan, we're going to learn a machlokas between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish about a nachri, and then we're going to see whether or not it fits into our Mishnah. So here's the machlokas, Rav Yochanan and Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Amar Rav Yochanan, again halfway down, Dalam and Aleph. B'tchila, when the mikdash is first being built, ein mekablen mehen, we are not allowed to receive gifts from them, from a nachri. Lo davar mesuyam, v'lo davar she'einu mesuyam, nothing that's earmarked and nothing that's not earmarked. And they can no checks, no blank checks, no cash, nothing. They are not allowed to be involved in the beginning of the building of the mikdash. So once the mikdash is already built, and now it's just a question of maintenance and making sure we meet the bottom line. So then mekablen mehen davar she'einu mesuyam, we do allow someone to give unearmarked dollars. They can just give a regular general donation. That's a shita of Rabbi Yochanan, that we don't allow any gifts at all, no matter what, when the Beis HaMikdash is being built. But afterwards, as long as the gift was general and not specific, then Rabbi Yochanan does allow for it. Rav Shimon ben Lakish Amar, nope, I disagree with you. I have a more of a strict line. He says, Bein betchila, bein besof, ein mekablen mehen, lo davar mesuyam, lo davar she'einu mesuyam. Sorry, you're not allowed to participate at all. No nachri is allowed to be involved with the building of the mikdash, and not with the building of it, and not with the continuity of it. We don't allow it at all. So that's a machlokes between Rav Yochanan and Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Again, Rav Yochanan takes a little bit of a lenient path, which is that once the mikdash is built, the non-Jew is allowed to give a general donation. But according to Rav Shimon ben Lakish, he's not allowed to give any type of donation at any point. Sorry, Michael, what'd you say?
Like an Ola. But that's after everything's been done.
Well, we're going to see the Ola is going to come up in today's daf. Of course, you knew that, but that's okay. Says the Gemara 2/3 of the way down. Masnisin, our Mishnah, pligi al Rabbi Yochanan. Our Mishnah doesn't work with Rabbi Yochanan because it says the word ein here twice in the Gemara. One of them is removed by the Meforshim. As I'm sure you know, that Shekalim is replete with complexities in the text and the Girsa. We're not going to learn every one, no time, that's for sure. But the ones that are very relevant, we will. So it says the Gemara, why doesn't this work? Why doesn't our Mishnah work according to Rabbi Yochanan? Because ein mekablen mehen hektish unedava lebedek habayis. We don't accept anything for the bedek habayis. We don't accept the money from them. So it says the Gemara, that's not always true. Patar la, how would we explain our Mishnah? When our Mishnah must be talking about a case where he was trying to give a specific earmarked gift, and that of course is not allowed according to Rav Yochanan. Skipping the parentheses, going down one line, 12 lines or so from the bottom. Rav Shimon Lakish Shamar, bein b'tchilu vein b'sofim mekablan hen lo davar mesuyim. That also works in our Mishnah that Rav Shimon ben Lakish fits. But then the Gemara asks a question on Rav Shimon ben Lakish. It seems like it fits, but maybe must nisan pligi al Rav Shimon ben Lakish as well. Did Tani, because we have a brisa elsewhere that reads Hakol Shavin in regards to a nachri, all is fine. We can accept their gifts. Shehein nodrin v'nidarin. Gifts that they make vows on, and gifts about which vows were made on a goy. We'll have to see what that means in a minute, because that's not clear from here. Says the Gemara, patar la ola, like Michael said, that here it's okay. We said in our Mishnah that he's not allowed to give the chatas and the asham, but they can be involved with an ola, seemingly. That's what the Gemara says. So then the Gemara questions even this answer. Nicha nodrin ola. I understand a case where he makes a neder. What was the other case? Nidarin ola. What was the case of nidarin, where a neder was made about him? So here is where we have two versions of the Gemara. I'll read version number one as I have it in my Gemara, and then it'll be flipped in the Hagos Hagra. So it says the Gemara, Ella, what is it? Really, it's Kisha Amar Yisrael Hare Alai Ola. Yisrael said out loud that he was mekabel on himself to bring a korban ola, and there was a nachri with an earshot. V'shama nachri v'amar masha amar zeh alai. Whatever he said, I want. I'm going to do the same thing. So the Yid said he wants to bring an ola. The guy says the same. The Gra reverses it. The Gra says, just looking back up one line, Ella, Kisha Amar Nachri Hare Alai Ola, Vishama Yisrael V'Amar Masha Amar Ze'alai. Okay, whatever, these are just, it's a nuance and understanding in what the case of Nidarin is. But the point is that the Gemara does give an answer to the question against Rav Shimon ben Lakish, that we are talking about a case where Patar La Be'ola, we're talking about bringing a korban ola. Says the Gemara, but this doesn't make sense. He's not going to bring a libation. When a guy does bring the oil, he's not going to bring wine. Wine is a standard part of the process. And umosar nesachen lo lekli sinun. When there is any extra wine, it's not going to be included. It's not going to be put in the kli sharis. Of course, it's going to be included. So says the Gemara, nimtza maybe davar mesuyam. So now what do we see? He brought something that's earmarked. He brought wine, and it's being used as wine in the mikdash as a libation during a korban, as the nisuch. So I don't understand. How can you say what you said? Reish Lakish, Rav Shimon ben Lakish. How can you say that? Answers the Gemara 5 lines from the bottom. Kisi Rav Yossi bar Rabbi Bon. Rav Yossi bar Rabbi Bon answered this question by bringing another case and comparing. Al-Taninan. We have another Mishnah that writes Ne'erachin v'orchen, that by a guy he's allowed to give Ne'erachin, the erech of a person, v'orchen, another iteration of the same idea, and says the Gemara, Lo lebedek habayis sinun. Where do you think the money's going when he gives an erech? It says Hare erkecha alai. So then you have to give that, the guy has to give that amount of money. Where do you think it goes to? It goes to bedek habayis. So says the Gemara, Hey chma da'at amar taman. What would you say over there? And answers the Gemara, the reason why it's mutter in the case of Erechin is because the Shamayim hu miskaben, 2 lines from the bottom. The Shamayim hu miskaben, he doesn't know what he's giving to. He doesn't know that it's earmarked. He doesn't know that it's going to the Bedek HaBayis. He has no clue. He wants to give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are organizations like this that recruit, they fundraise from those of other traditions to support the state of Israel. Fine. So that's as long as it's l'shamayim, that's great. It just happened to be that the money ended up in the coffers to support the bedek habayis, but the Nachri didn't know where the money was going to go, so it's not really mesuyam. It ends up appearing to be mesuyam. So says the Gemara, that's how we would have answered by the ne'erachin ve'orchin. Last line, Kain at amar avhacha. We would say here as well, in our case, in our Mishnah, the case of the nodrin and the nidarin. So it says the Gemara, what we have said, turning to the top of Dal and and therefore it is not a problem. The words on the top of this line are very complicated, and some of them seemingly need to be removed. And it's the words of ma avad la should be removed, and it says Rav Shimon ben Lakish patar la. What is the explanation of Rav Shimon ben Lakish's shita? Namely, where does he get his idea from that he should have such a hard line that one is not allowed at all to accept any gifts for a goy either prior to the completion of the building of the Beis HaMikdash or after, and whether it's Mesuyam or Einu Mesuyam, whether or not it's earmarked? Says the Gemara, Patar La. How would he explain it based on the pasuk that we saw from Ezra, the pasuk that we saw in our Mishnah? Lo lachem bilanu livnos Beis Elokenu, that it's on us to do it. Good. Rav Chizki Amar Rav Simon Shal, he asks a question. This is the second time we've had this language so far in Shekalim, and Shal doesn't mean he had a question that he didn't know the answer to. He had a shita and he was testing the room. He wanted to see how people would respond. It says the Gemara Me'ata, what does it seem from here? It seems from here, from Rav Shimon ben Lakish's very strong line that we cannot accept any money from a nachri by the Beis HaMikdash, that maybe Ein Mekablan Mehen also applies la'amas hamayim. It even applies for the aqueduct, for the water that would run through the Mikdash that they would use to rinse their hands. They would use to let the whatever the water was used for in the Mikdash, or the Chomos Ha'ir Migdaloseh, for the walls of the city and for the towers of the city. Al Shem v'lachem ein chelek, that you should have no part at all. That's what it seems to be. That would be a tzushta. Rav Chizkiah said in the name of Rav Simon. That was the question he was asking. And we have to skip a few lines here. What? I'm sorry, Mark, I know. The parentheses are 5 lines long, approximately 4.5 lines. And then the Gemara continues about 8 or 9 lines down, a quarter of the way down on Daled Amud Beis, Masnisa to Rav Meir. Our Mishnah must be like Rav Meir, but what does Rav Meir say? To Amar Rav Meir, Kishem Sheshaklo Torah, Kach Kalbano Torah. So this is, we're changing gears now. What are we talking about? We're moving over to the story of the Kalbon. Remember what we pointed out, that the Kalbon was either 1/12 or 1/24 addition to the Maseches HaShekel. And this is a very unique shita, because it seems from Rav Meir, he says, Kishem Sheshaklo Torah, just like the Maseches HaShekel is a din deoraisa, Kach Kalbano Torah. Seems to be that the percentage extra is also a fundamental requirement from the Torah. Kasava Rav Meir, ben nosein shekalo shalem shu chayav bekalbon. When someone gives a full shekel, he's obligated to pay the kalbon. To Amar Rav Meir, kimin matbeh shel eish. There was this coin that was in fire, that Hotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitachas kisei kvodo v'her'ehu leMoshe. He took this coin from under his chair and he showed it to Moshe, this perfect Maseches HaShekel. You know, it's like they have these places, I don't remember exactly where it is, where they have the kilogram. It's a piece of metal. It is exactly, to many, many, many decimal points, exactly 2.2 pounds, whatever the weight is. And they keep it in this under lock and key to make sure the world will always have the perfect paradigm of what a kilogram is. So obviously, Kaviyachol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave this matbeh shel eish. He showed Moshe Rabbeinu exactly what it looked like. This is what you should be getting for the Maseches HaShekel. And he showed Moshe. But what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has is pure. What we have is impure. We will look at metals and say they're 99% pure, 98% pure. It has impurities, and we're not allowed to give less than what we're obligated to give. And therefore, he held midoraisa. One's obligated to give more. So Amar lo zeh yitenu, kizeh yitenu, exactly this way. And therefore, Rav Meir was of the opinion that you had to give a little bit more. Then the Mishnah quoted this line, and we didn't know who the author was. Nasan selo litol shekel chayiv shnei kolbonos. If a person were to give, what was the case back in the Mishnah? The case in the Mishnah was hanosein selav and notel shekel. If I give in money and then I am taking back chatzi shekels from the money changer, then we said you have to give two kolbonos. You had to give 2 of those small extra payments. So now the Gemara is going to analyze that. Where the 2 dots third of the way down, Daled Amud Beis, Nasan selo litol shekel chayiv shnei kolbonos. Who is the author of that? The Gemara doesn't say who the author is, but that again, it's an implied question. Amar Rebbe Lazar, the Rebbe Meir. Obviously, this makes perfect sense that it fits with Rav Meir, because if you look in our Mishnah, there were 2 sheets that's quoted. Skip the parentheses. Titanya elu chayvim bekalbon v'chulei kalbon echad Rav Meir amar beis kolbonos. In our Mishnah, we saw there was a machlokas where the Tanakama held that you're only obligated to bring 1 kolbon, 1 little extra percentage. Masha'inkin, according to Rav Meir, you are obligated to give 2. So it seems pretty obvious that this second line of the Mishnah, which follows Rav Meir's sheet, is also Rav Meir. But then says the Gemara, that's not necessarily true. Umar Rav, or some, it says on the side here, Rav Omar, which is much more typical to what we're used to in the Bavli language, in the Bavli dialect. But here he says, Divrei HaKolhi. Everyone would agree to this line. This is not just Rav Meir. To Amar Rav Meir, Echad shekel shehu nosein, v'echad shekel shehu notel, v'echad divrei Torah. Our Mishnah says too, but really, Rav Meir was of the opinion that you had to bring 3 of these kolbons. You had to give of the kolbons. You had to give 3 of these small percentages. One of them was when you handed in the coin in case the coin had depreciated. One of them was when you received back the Maseches HaShekel, maybe the Maseches HaShekel had depreciated. And the other was because it was a din Torah according to Rav Meir. And that's what the Gemara says here. And it says, Al Divrei Rav, Al Daite, Dirav, Gimel Kalbonos Sinu. That really Rav understands that Rav Meir held that there were 3 kolbonos as described above. And it wasn't just that. Rav also taught this to his Talmidim because Asa Rav Yirmiyah, Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak b'shem Rab, who was explaining Rav Meir Shlosha Kolbonos Inun Echad Shekel Shehu Nosein ve'Echad Shekel Shehu Notel ve'Echad L'Davar Torah. So the Gemara seems to say here that when the line in our Mishnah says that you're Notel Sela and you're Shokel a shekel, when you go to the money changer and give in a full shekel and get back half shekel, you're obligated to give you're obligated to give 2 according to everybody. And the Reb Meir that we know of would say 3, the Tanakama would say 2. Everyone would agree that there's a minimum of 2 that would be given in such a case.
You're expected to show up with exactly half a shekel.
The value of, you can give more, and I mean you can give more in this way. You can't like give anything you want.
Can't get $50.
Right. You can't walk in and write a check.
If you walk in there and you have only you only have a whole shekel.
No.
Then you get stuck.
But there were money changers all over the place. They were they made a killing. You know, you go into Eretz Yisrael now. Yeah, you walk around Eretz Yisrael now. Every 50 feet, there's another money changer because they're killing you on the race. You know,
right.
they're killing you. So it's the same thing.
Right. So
when you would give in the shekel, they'd give you back 2 chatzi shekels. But because of this depreciation concern, or according to Meir, even a halachic concern, you have to make up for the losses. And that is machzitza shekel. It's not like, you know, just write a check.
Right. But when you do turn in the actual shekel and say, hey, I didn't go to the money changer.
You'd have to exchange it. It reminds me of what sometimes people do when they give the Rav by B'dikat Chametz, by Mechirat Chametz, that they'll write a check to the Rav. So when I was in Smicha, there was a Rav in the neighborhood, and he knew, like he could tell from the people that they were like, it was like kind of like, you know, politics. They would write big checks and they would expect things in Shul to change their way. So what he did is he would take a receipt. And he wouldn't write people's names. He'd write $15,000, $25,000, $30,000, and he'd write down the numbers, no one's names, 1,000, 1,500, 5,000, and he'd post a receipt that he gave it all to charity. And it infuriated all of his balabatim who were trying to chap a Ryan and trying to twist his arm. So this is
he got the tax deduction.
Well, they all got tax deductions, but the point is that they didn't get to manipulate the shul rabbi. So it was somewhat similar here too. You have to make sure you're giving the right amount and you're not giving more than the right amount. Let's learn one more sugya and then we'll stop. This is the sugya of ha'achin ve'ashutas shechayavin bekalbon upturn mimaiser behema. This was the story that we had in our Mishnah. We had the halachic case in our Mishnah of brothers who are also partners, and if they are chayav in the kalbon, as our Mishnah writes, they're also pater mimaiser behema. That remember we learned that there's an inverse relationship between the chiyuv of the kalbon of paying this extra fee uptur mimaiser behema, while at the same time there will be a ptur from the meiser of the behema. Now, when was that true? That was b'shechalko, when they split up the inheritance from their father, v'chazar b'nishtatu, and then they made a business out of the deal. They became partners again. If you just take your own Yerusha and you take it and run, so then pashat you're chayiv in everything because you're a full owner. But here things are a little bit different when you're a shutav, so you're pater from meiser, but you may still be chayiv in the kolbon. And what about the next case? Shechayavin, we're 10 lines from the bottom. Shechayavin b'meiser behema upturn mina kalbon b'shaloch chalko. When do we say that you're obligated in meiser behema, but you're pater from the kalbon? That's when you never split up the father's property. It's as if it's still a din in the bias. He still has the same initial status. Amar Rav Lazar, same person from before. Behein shechalko gedim keneged tiyashim v'tiyashim keneged gedim. It's where you split things up. It wasn't like 50-50, like you go take those animals and I'll take these animals. That's when we said the halacha above. Aval im chilko gedim keneged gedim. If you were very particular, there's 26 gedim, I'll take 13, you'll take 13. Utiyashim, there's 50 of those. Utiyashim keneged tiyashim. Hu chelko misha rishona. That's not really considered becoming a partner. That's just taking your Yerusha and running. Amar Rav Yochanan, afidu chelko gedim neged gedim utiyashim neged tiyashim. No, you don't have to. No matter how you split it up, it's still possible that you can be shutfim. It's still kilakucho saying upturn mina meiser. You still would be pater for meiser. And that, in other words, when are you pater for meiser? When you're a shutaf, when you have that business partnership. So then it's still as if you have that business partnership, even if you're splitting perfectly down the middle. Kiahu de tanin and taman, like we learned in the Mishnah elsewhere, alakuach v'shenitin lo b'matana pater mi meiser behema. That once these people are partners, once there's a purchase from one person to another. So then it's as if they're partners, and then they're pater from meiser behema. So starting on Shabbos at the bottom by Rav Chia, we're going to start to learn more about why this relationship is inverse. Why is it that if you pay the kalbon, you're by definition pater from meiser behema, or vice versa? If you're chayiv in meiser behema, you'll be pater from the kalbon. We'll begin on Shabbos, and again, just to review for those who might not have been on when we started, we're going to be doing Daf Hey on Shabbos, Daf Vav on Sunday, and Daf Zayin on Monday, and then on Tuesday and Wednesday we'll catch up, a blot and a half each. And I hope you all have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. Take care. Have a beautiful night.
Yeah. You figure out today when it was an hour.
I saw that.